and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In this episode we are going to talk about Rekognition, that is a managed AWS service that lets you recognize images and videos and produce analysis on them. If you want to know more about serverless, cloud computing or software engineer practices in general, subscribe to my channel in the red button below. I post a video every Tuesday. So let's get started! So today's video I wanted to be a simple tutorial using Rekognition. I just was playing with this service a couple of weeks ago and I thought, oh, this is really nice, let's make a video out of it. I have made in the past something similar using the Google API, the Google Vision API, where I was building this Instacat application. Basically it's an Instagram that only lets you upload cat pictures, and I was using this Google Vision API to recognize if the image is a cat or not. So I want to do the same, but using AWS Rekognition. If you don't know what AWS Rekognition is a totally managed service from AWS that allows you to analyze images and videos. AWS has a really big offering in what is machine learning, and Rekognition, Poly, Comprehend, Translate, they are all kind of in the top layer of this offering. So there is I think a 3-layer offering. The first layer is a fully managed service when you get all these trained models and you just use it by an API. You don't need to worry about training, you don't need to know anything about machine learning in order to use these services. Like Rekognition, you just call an API and it will tell you what is in the image. Then there is this second layer, that is the layer where SageMaker is. That is a new product that was released a couple of years ago, where you can train your models and write them there, and there's also a marketplace for non-experts to get models from, and there you can do a little bit more complicated and more personalized things than in Rekognition and in all these these services are very specific. The top services like Rekognition and Poly, that is like a chat service, like it understands. And then we have Comprehend, that is to read and get emotions from text. And then we have Transcribe, that transcribes from language to text and the other way around. So there's many of these different services. And then we have SageMaker, that is more broad and you can put your own models. And then on the bottom of everything we have these kind of images for machine learning kind of computers, like deep learning. So you can grab this infrastructure and put whatever framework makes you happy, like TensorFlow, and write everything from scratch, and that's totally managed on your side. I think I could not make a video on that because I know nothing about machine learning, but if you're interested, I can try SageMaker as a non-machine learning expert and have a tutorial on that. I don't know, if you're interested, let me know if you want to know more about SageMaker. I have played with it a little bit and it's very fun, and I think it can be a nice experiment for non-machine learning experts to get into. So going back to what is Rekognition, Rekognition works with images and videos, and it does different things. So it lets you analyze what is in a picture, so it can tell you that there is I don't know, if you take a picture of a living room, a sofa, TV, the roof, the ceiling. It can also recognize faces, so you can say this person is this and this person is that, and then it can tell you if the picture has that person. It can also recognize facial analysis, so it can recognize emotions and ages, and if you have a mustache or green eyes or things like that. It can also recognize celebrities, very important. It can has different features with videos, so you can track different people. If you're, for example, following a football match, you can say, okay, this person is this and that, and you can do a tracking of that person. So there is a lot of things that you can do with these services out of the box, and it's as easy as calling an API and saying what you want to do. In this video we are going to use the kind of image recognition, the most basic one, the one that it just returns some labels of what is in the image. And what we are going to do is we are going to upload an image to S3, then that image in S3 will trigger a Lambda, that Lambda will call Rekognition, and Rekognition will check if that image has a cat or not. If the image doesn't have a cat, then it will delete it from our bucket. If the image has a cat, then we are fine and the image gets to stay. So let's go to the code and see this in practice. So let's start by looking what we are going to build. The first thing we are going to do is that we are going to upload an image to S3. It can be a cat or anything else. And when there is an image there, that will trigger a Lambda. And that Lambda will call the recognition service using the AWS SDK to get the labels of the if the image has a cat in the labels, then we will remove the image from the bucket using also the AWS SDK. So it's a pretty simple scenario. So the first thing I want to do is to go to Rekognition and show you what the service is. So this is the service page. So if you are logged into your AWS console and you go to Rekognition service, you will see this, and it tells you all the demos in the site. So there you can basically upload an image and then start seeing things. So I will upload a cat, and then in the side you can see that there is a lot of labels. So animal, pet, mammal, cat, head, wildlife, and they have like a percentage attached to it. So this image is 98% sure that is an animal, 98% that is a pet, 98% that is a mammal, 98% that is a cat. So that's the confidence level that this machine learning algorithm has on identifying this image. So now, for example, if we upload another image that is not a cat, that is a dog, we can see that the results are a little different. We have the mammal, the pet, but then we have canine, and we have dog, and we have more specific things like a hound. So we can see information about this image. So we are going to do something similar from the backend. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a new serverless framework project, and then we are going to start. So I will create this very fast. I will call it Rekognition Cat or Not, very stupid name, and I will create a serverless framework project. Then we are going to clean the serverless YAML as always, and we are going to move on to starting to code this service. So now our thing is clean. We are going to create one function that is the only function this application is going to have, that is called the validate image function. And that, if you see, it has a handler, the validate image, and it has an event that is an S3 event. That means that when we put an element, an object in this bucket called Rekognition Cat or Not, it will, and we put it because it's the object created trigger, then this Lambda will get triggered. And this is really useful way of triggering a Lambda. For doing this, we need to give some IAM permissions. So we need to give permissions to access the bucket. So we are going to give permissions to listing all the objects that are in the buckets, to get particular object, and to delete an object, because we want to be able to get rid of the images that are not cats. And we are going to give those permissions in our bucket, the Rekognition Cat or Not. If you are following this tutorial, remember that you might need to create a new bucket with a different name, because I might have taken the recognition name of the bucket. And then we need to give permissions to this Lambda to use recognition. And we are going to give very specific permissions. That is exactly we want to give permissions to detect labels. So there are functionalities of recognitions this Lambda cannot use. So that's why we are giving the very specific action. Now we can move on to the handler.js. So we are going to create this validate image Lambda, and we are going to clean up whatever is there, because we are not returning an HTTP response. So we need to, the first thing we need to do is to get the S3 bucket name and the name of the element that was uploaded to S3. So for that, we are going to use the record S3 from the event object. And you can see there, if you do console log event record array 0, for example, S3, then you can see exactly what is coming. You can also log what is in the records and see if you have one more than one record. But in this case, we imagine that upload one image at a time. So we are getting this key and bucket one at a time. We just console log that we have uploaded a file with this name to this bucket. And the next thing we want to do is to detect the labels. Then we want to check if those labels contain cat on it. And if it does, then everything is fine. We don't do anything. But if it doesn't have a cat, then we want to delete that images. So that's what we're going to do. I will go one step at a time. The first thing I want to do is to import all the AWS SDKs into this module. We are going to use the S3 and the recognition module, so we need to bring this in. And now we are going to create the detect labels method. And for that, we are going to pass the bucket and the key of the objects that we just uploaded. After that we are going to call the recognition method detect labels. And for that, we need to pass a parameter. As always, when we are using the AWS SDK, we have these params that we need to create with different information. The first part is the image information that we are uploading, that is the S3 object, and that's the bucket and the name of the object. And then we will pass how many labels we want to get. In this case, we get 5, and the minimum confidence, that's 85%. So if we remember from when we were in the console, we were getting this 98.5. This means that we are only getting labels that are over 85%. So that the machine is quite secure that we are getting a cat, for example. And we call the Rekognition SDK. And if you want to know how to use the Rekognition SDK, you can go to the documentation that it explains everything, all the parameters that you need to pass for all the different methods, the detect faces, detect labels, detect celebrities, and so on. So it's quite good documentation. It's available also for S3 and for any other AWS service that you can use through the SDK. Good, now we have the detect labels, we need just to call it, and this returns a promise, so we are just resolving the promise to know if in the labels that we are getting back there is a cat or not. So now let's build a method to check if there is a cat in those labels, and that's a pretty simple method that we are going through all the labels and check it if there is a cat, and if there is cat then we just return true, if not then we return false. Very simple. So now we can call that method and get the boolean if it's a cat or not. And I will just change the name to that method to something better, or I don't know if it's better, but something else, so it doesn't confuse you with the name of the variable. And we pass the labels that we just got from the detect labels. So now we need to delete the image if it's not a cat, and for that we are writing this simple function. It will call the AWS SDK and delete an object from S3. As always, we pass the params, and in this case we need to pass the bucket and the key. So if it's not a cat, then we will remove the image. And we can just put something in the console that we have removed this image, for example, so you know. So now we can deploy, but I was about to deploy and I realized that I was missing some things. So I will go and fix a little bit the code, because I always do the same. I always forget to return from the promises. So in this case, I need to return the detect promise, the detect label, and the remove image, and now this will work. So I will do that, and now I can deploy. So I'm deploying my code. I will speed this up. When it's deployed, we'll come back. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to upload an image to the bucket, and that you can do from the AWS CLI using the command AWS S3 API, put object, the name of the bucket and the name of the key that you're going to put there, and then the body refers to the object that you're uploading from your computer. So I'm standing in the same directory that this image, and now I'm uploading a picture that has not a cat. And then I put the logs on with a tail, so we can see what is happening. The moment I upload the picture, the Lambda gets triggered, and then we wait for a second, and we can see that the image is getting some tags, and we can see the tags are hound and dog and doctor. That's a very weird tag, and the image is not a cat and it was removed. So if we do the same, but we upload a cat picture, then we will see that the Lambda gets triggered, and then we will see the labels of that image, and we can see that it's a cat and it will not be removed. So then we can go to the, for example, to the S3 bucket, and we can check that the only images that are in our bucket are cat images, and everything that was not a cat was removed. This code is available in GitHub, as always. The link is in the description box, and you can see that with less than 50 lines of code you can do something pretty interesting, and you can use these detect labels and detect faces things in very interesting ways. This was the video for today. I hope you like it. If you did, give a big thumbs up. And if you have any questions about other random services from AWS, like, I don't know, any of these managed services that are really fun to play with and explore and use, very simple with APIs. So I'm very happy to create tutorials for you. So let me know in the comments box which ones are you interested, and if you want me to do kind of a series for non-machine learning experts, just for developers, into SageMaker, let me know, because that's something I think it will take a little bit of planning, but I think it can be pretty fun to get out. Around here, as always, there are other videos from my channel for you to watch, so go ahead and click, and if not, I see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!